Raising kids is a challenge. Raising good kids is a big challenge. And raising godly kids is an incredible but possible challenge. There are several important ingredients needed to raise godly children. One of those is teaching children to obey. Obedience to be obedience must be immediate and sweet. Parents must also teach children to show respect and honor. A child who is not taught to respect his parents will also not respect other adults, older people, his mate, or God. Right. Then too, parents must protect their children from evil. Evil in general and evil influences in particular. It is a false philosophy that says that you produce better kids by exposing them to the filth of this world. Romans 16:19 says, I would have you wise unto that which is good and simple or ignorant concerning evil. Fundamental Bible believers are often accused of overprotecting their children. Could I give you my observation of that? We do not lose our children because of being overprotective. We lose our kids because of being harsh and critical or from being inconsistent in our own lives. By far the majority of Christian families I know are not protective enough of their children. Teaching obedience and respect and protecting children from evil are key ingredients necessary to raise godly children, but they are not the key ingredient. In fact, you may have those ingredients and still not succeed in raising a wise, godly child without the key ingredient. In Proverbs 23:26 we read, My son, give me thine heart. Malachi chapter 4 verse 6 is a prophecy concerning the ministry of John the Baptist, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers. But that's not the end of the verse. The verse ends with a warning of what God does if fathers don't turn their hearts to their children. It says, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. We are witnessing the fulfillment of that verse all around us when kids shoot kids. And when schools have to have armed guards and metal detectors. And when people are afraid to walk city streets alone. Luke chapter 1 verse 17 is a further exposition of Malachi chapter 4 verse 6. And he, that is John the Baptist, shall go before him, referring to Jesus, in the spirit and power of Elias or Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient, that's the children, to the wisdom of the just. That's what parents are supposed to be. The number one characteristic of wisdom is justice. When children see parents as just rather than unjust, then children are more likely to cease their disobedience and rebellion and give their hearts to their parents. The last phrase of that verse says, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Young people are not ready, not prepared for God to work in their lives until their hearts are turned from themselves or from others to their parents. Now I've given you the passage where the truth is stated. Now let me tell you where the truth is illustrated. 2 Samuel 13 and 14 are the chapters that tell how King David lost his son Absalom's heart. Absalom and Tamar were full-blooded brother and sister. But David was not as protective of Tamar as he should have been. David allowed Tamar's half-brother Amnon to be alone with Tamar, and Amnon raped his half-sister. David was angry when he heard what happened, but he took no action. 2 years later, Absalom had his half-brother Amnon executed to revenge his sister's rape. Then Absalom fled to Geshur for 3 years. David's general Joab noticed how badly David missed Absalom, so he got the king to bring Absalom back to Jerusalem. But for 2 more years, David refused to talk to his son. Absalom, provoked to wrath by his father's 5-year silence, sent for General Joab. When Joab didn't come, he sent and set Joab's barley fields on fire. Those fields on fire were a picture of Absalom's heart burning with anger and rejection and distress because of being cut off from his father David. Finally, Joab came, and Absalom looked at him and said, I want to see my father. If he wants to kill me, then let him kill me, but I want to see my father. So Joab talked to David. And David sent for Absalom. But the reception he received was not the warm reception of a father. It was the cold reception of a monarch on a throne. When a man is a father, his children must see him first and foremost as a father. Children don't mind a father being something else, but he must primarily be a father to his children. It's all right to be a pastor or a banker or a businessman, but a father must first be a father to his children. Absalom was treated like a subject when he should have been treated like a son. And in the very next verse, 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1, Absalom had become a rebel, and he had plotted and was carrying out his plan to usurp his father's throne. Verse 6 of chapter 15 is an enlightening verse. Absalom did to the men of Israel what he apparently wished David, his father, would have done for him. By listening and talking and touching, Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Before that chapter ended, David was running for his life, and Absalom, the rebel, had taken the throne of Israel. Now please listen carefully as I make one of the most important statements that has ever been made from this pulpit. In fact, this statement will be one of the most important statements you will ever hear any preacher or teacher make in your entire life. Here it is. The key ingredient in raising good kids is to get their hearts early. Keep their hearts and be extremely vigilant to not lose their hearts. But if you do lose a child's heart, then quickly find out where and when you lost it and put into action a plan to get the heart back, no matter what it takes to do it. No matter what it takes. What do I mean? I mean no matter how much time or trouble or money it takes to get back your child's heart, you must decide you will be willing to pay the price. It might cost. It might cost financially. It may cost $1,000 or $10,000. You must be willing to pay the price. That's right. It may cost you your job. You must be willing to pay the price. It may require you selling your home and relocating elsewhere. You must be willing to pay the price. It may require radical changes in your own personal life. You must be willing to pay the price. Be sure of this right now as you listen to this message. God knows your heart. And God already knows whether or not you love your child enough to be willing to pay the price to deal with their disobedience and rebellion. The date was December the 21st, 1992. I was at home, had not gone to the office yet when my telephone rang. A very distraught mother was on the other end of the line. For a year and a half, they had had problems with their now 17-and-a-half-year-old son, Michael. It all seemed to have started about age 16 when they got Michael his own car and let him get a job at a local fast food restaurant. Michael became close friends with a 19-year-old fellow who had attended the same Christian school where Michael was a student, and also a 25-year-old man who had a wife and a child. Why don't I stop right here and allow Michael's mother to tell you their story in her own words. Our son running around with a 25-year-old married man with a child, a man faithful to our church, seemed fine. Boy, were we wrong. Michael soon started staying out late. He was working later and later. On his days off, he went with his friends to their homes to play pool or ping pong. Mr. 19-year-old's girlfriend wasn't allowed to go out with him unless her parents went, so that wasn't a problem. So far as we knew, Mike and Mr. 19-year-old were just a couple of Christian guys having fun. We totally trusted Mike. We watched him. He seemed to be still having devotions. He was still in church most of the time. His mouth was a little smarter than usual, but we chalked it up to being 16. We also noticed him stretching the rules a little bit. Some things weren't adding up, but nothing major. Then in November, 4 months after Mike turned 16, we got up one morning and the car was gone. It was 4 a.m. and Mike wasn't home yet. Well, this was stretching the rules a little much. We were both up and suddenly noticed a note on the dining room table. I still remember every word on it, even though it's been 3 years now. It said, someone said I could do it. I love you, Mom and Dad. Bye, Mike. We weren't sure what it meant, but we were horrified. First, we ran over to Mr. 19-year-old's apartment. No one was there. We checked the garage. No one was there. About that time, I checked my purse and realized $300 was gone. It was really a relief to realize that he had taken the money and probably run away. We did all the things we could do, but what happened is we started searching through his stuff, questioning people he knew at school. Boy, were we shocked. We found lots of awful hard rock music tapes. Mike set those out for us before he left. We found cigarettes and found out he'd been drinking. We found pictures he had drawn of evil, wicked skulls. They gave me chills. Mike had a side that we knew nothing about. Mike was found 5 days later in Florida, broke. We had him put in a detention home, and we went to get him. This family lives in the state of Illinois. Mr. 19, who had gone with Mike, was just left in the street. We had the car impounded, so he had nowhere to go or stay. His parents sent him nothing, so he was left on the streets of Tampa, Florida, with only his clothes. He was scared. He stayed at a police station sitting in a chair. We got there 2 days later. God had started to work, and we brought back both boys. Mike confessed to us everything and asked our forgiveness. We blindly gave it to him. From this point on, Mr. 19 and Mr. 25 were gone. Mr. 25-year-old had been taking the boys to bars. One part Mike held back was that Mr. 19-year-old had introduced him to pornography. They had started renting X-rated movies. Mike was fine until the next summer when a girl came into the picture. She seemed like a nice girl. She went to church, an A student, worked hard. We liked her. Again, we trusted blindly and soon started noticing small things not adding up. Mike was smart-mouthed with us. By this time, we were homeschooling, but I still was working 35 hours a week and my husband 50 hours a week. The children were home alone a lot. There were small things that weren't adding up, but the hard rock music wasn't seen around the house. He wasn't smoking. He never talked mean or ugly to us. His hair was short, neat, and clean. He was always in church. He loved his family. To us, he was just a struggling good kid. December the 20th. That was one day before they called me. Mike's sister came into our room about 11 o'clock at night crying. She said she had to talk to us. She told us Mike and a friend had been bringing X-rated movies into the house. She had walked in on him one night. He had a VCR in his own room. They threw her out and told her to keep quiet. They didn't care what we thought or anyone else. They were going to do what they wanted to do. Our daughter also told us he had ruined her birthday slumber party 2 weeks earlier. He had taken one of the girls in the car and was kissing her. He had also been equally aggressive with all her other 14-year-old friends. I'll read more of the letter later. But it was that morning of the next day, December the 21st, that Michael's folks made contact with me. They desperately wanted to know if there was anything they could do to change their 17-and-a-half-year-old son. Now, allow me to ask you right here, what would you tell those parents? What could this mom and dad possibly do that would straighten out a 17-and-a-half-year-old son who has now tried about everything the world has to offer, has become deceitful, and shows little or no inclination towards changing whatsoever? Before I tell you the end of the story, let me first point out to you, number one, rebellion originates in the heart.
Amen. That's right.
Rebellion originates in the heart, and the heart of every problem is a problem in the heart. And that includes rebellion. Rebellion is more a heart problem than it is an outward life problem. Hebrews 3:10 says they do always err in their heart. The problem David had was that he had lost Absalom's heart. Absalom's life wandered